Today, we're going to talk about the most important numbers to focus on to get fit and stay fit for life. Okay. Because these are big, big numbers that not enough people really talk about, not enough people acknowledge or focus on during the journey, which can derail them. Because let's be honest, most people only focus on weight. So we're going to talk about some better numbers, some better data to follow to get a gauge on if you're doing everything you can to live the best quality life that you can. Now, before we jump in, make sure you are following or you are subscribed wherever you are watching or listening, so that way you don't miss another episode going forward. So let's dive in. When it comes to these numbers, this comes off the back of one of the monthly calls that I had with my clients because we do monthly Zoom calls. And we got on the topic of the numbers because we always want to take a look at the data and see how did the last 4 weeks go? How did the next 4 weeks look? What are we going to try to accomplish? And she was a little bit down because weight hasn't really moved that much recently, but we go and look at the waist circumference and her waist is down 4.5 inches over 4 months. And that is huge because not just the fact that, hey, now we can fit into more clothes and feel more confident in those clothes, but also like the health implications that come with that. Like if you were to look up how much your all cause mortality risk goes down per inch, it's like an estimated 1.5 to 4.5%. And that's just with 1 inch. So what does that mean if we're reducing by 4.5 inches? Okay. It can have extreme benefits when it comes to your overall health. So I'm like, okay, so let's dive in a little bit deeper and figure out what these numbers should be, because this has kind of been an ongoing project for myself to figure out, okay, what are the biggest, most impactful boxes that we can check from a lifestyle management perspective that put you in the best case scenario? Because I'll be totally honest, every metric that I give you, if you nail them perfectly, it's still does not erase the fact that some people genetically were not born with the best odds, and everybody has their things that they need to account for that they might need medicine for. And that doesn't mean that you're weak or a bad person or lazy. It just means that that was the hand you were dealt. But that doesn't mean that we can't take ownership of the behaviors that put us in the best situation possible. So that's what this is going to be all about. Like, let's check every box that we can. So when you go to your doctor, you could say, hey, I've got all this stuff like taken care of as best as I can on my end. Now, tell me what needs to be done going forward, if anything. Okay. So, first off, the metric everybody focuses on is weight. Okay. Everybody thinks, oh, I just got to reduce the amount of weight on the scale and I'll be good to go. But that doesn't really tell us a whole lot. Especially daily weigh-ins are better indicators of your bowel movements for the day rather than you actually burning body fat or building muscle or anything like that. So what are these other metrics that I keep alluding to? All right, there's the big three. There's blood work, cardio, and strength. So let's go one by one. First off, blood work. What are some things to look for that will put you in a good position? Now, before I get into it, just know if your doctor says different, listen to them. There are very complex things going on in your body that may require your numbers to be different, and that's totally fine. This is not medical advice, but as a general rule of thumb, these are guidelines that are put out there by the various societies that, like, when it comes to heart health, like they put out guidelines for cholesterol because it can improve your heart health to get in a certain range and put you in the cool kids club of all these people that have these numbers that are in a better situation than people that have worse numbers. All right. So when it comes to cholesterol, we want to have under 200 total cholesterol, and LDL ideally under 100, but the lower the better. All right. When it comes to blood pressure, under 130 over 80 is ideal. When it comes to your A1C, like the sugars, okay, under 5.5 is ideal. And then when it comes to waist circumference, which we just talked about, which is a really, really good indicator of visceral fat, okay, it can let me see. For men, it should be 35 inches or less. And then for women, it should be 31.5 inches or less. And this becomes a very big deal, especially around the menopause transition, because when women hit the menopause transition, when they're hitting peri and they officially go into postmenopause, all those hormonal changes do result in your fat distributing differently. So a lot of women, especially in their younger years, hold it mostly in the hips and the butt and areas like that. And men usually hold it kind of in the trunk area, like the chest and the belly. But when that transition happens, it shifts more to the chest and the belly. All right. A little bit more, I guess the term for it would be like androgen dominant body type, where your estrogen is lower compared to your testosterone, and that can affect where you hold your fat. And when we hold more in those areas, then you're at an increased risk for a lot of negative things that come with elevated visceral fat levels. So waist circumference is a very, very, very big deal. Um, yeah, so we want to get that under control. And when it comes to those specific things, okay, I'm not going to leave you hanging and just say we got to do all these things, but I'm not going to give you any answers. Okay. When it comes to a lot of these, exercise helps a ton. I'm not going to lie. That's why exercise is one of those big rocks. It just helps with a number of different things. Okay. But then when it comes to things like cholesterol, for example, one of the best things you could do is number one, reduce your saturated fat intake. If your saturated fat is more than 10% of your daily calories, then that's a really quick thing that you can tap into right there and say, okay, I'm going to make sure that I bring that number down. So you want to focus on fats that are monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, those fats that you can see through, not the ones that are super creamy and thick, like butter or fat, like really fatty cuts of steak and things like that, that have high levels of saturated fat. Next is your blood pressure. Okay. Blood pressure, one of the big ones that, big things nutritionally that you could focus on is getting control of your sodium intake. Do you want to have no salt in your diet? Absolutely not, because that has bad consequences too. But we want to be in a good range where the recommended daily allowance is about 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams a day. But people are getting way north of that because of processed foods, because of frozen foods and things that basically are very shelf stable foods that are tend to be cheaper, but they're shelf stable because they're packed with salt. So it's like you got to figure out what you can do and ways to bring that salt level down. And honestly, it could be just a difference of brands, because a lot of brands make the exact same thing, but one has a crap load of sodium and the other one does not. Prime example, one of the big ones that I caught when I started paying attention was the high fiber mission wraps. Per wrap is like 600 milligrams, and I was having like three. So that's 1,800 milligrams just on lunch. I'm already within the range. So basically, zero wiggle room for breakfast and dinner. So that is an easy switch. Now I go from that to the Trader Joe's corn tortillas, and I think that there's like 40 milligrams of salt per tortilla, and they're smaller tortillas. I'll give you that. So basically, for the exact same amount of tortilla, I'd say one of those small ones at Trader Joe's is about like three of them is about the size of that Mission one. So still, it's 100-ish, 120 milligrams for the same size as this 600 milligram one. Easy switch. And it doesn't have to be something super drastic like that. It could, like, it doesn't have to be some drastic measure that we're taking. It's just the understanding that, hey, this has a ton of sodium. I'll just do this one instead of that one. And then that could put you in such a better position over time. And then also with blood pressure too, exercise helps a ton. But one of the things that helps even more so and can be like a little add-on sprinkle effect is isometric exercises are really good when it comes to bringing blood pressure down. So things like wall sits, planks, like anything where you're holding really, really tight, a farmer carry, stuff like that can help a ton. And really any compound exercise where you're holding heavy weights that you need to stabilize your core to make sure that you don't hurt your back or anything like that, that technically is an isometric exercise. So another case for just using heavy weights that are challenging you to hold steady and hold tight. Next is A1C. Like when it comes to sugar, simple one is understand your sugar intake throughout the day. Okay. You want to make sure that it's as low as possible. And when we're talking about carbohydrates, one of the easiest switches you can make is just make sure that if you're going to have a carbohydrate, have some fiber in it. Ideally, at least 2 or 3 grams of fiber minimum per serving, but more if possible. And that will take out a lot of the sugary stuff that drives that A1C number through the roof. All right. Because if it has fiber in it, it will slow the rate at which it is absorbed in your body and into your bloodstream. And overall, the total sugar number usually is lower when it comes to things that have fiber in them. And you'll see things like fruit, for example. People demonize, oh, there's so much sugar. Yes, but it's also got fiber in there. So if you're going to have sugar, have it from fruits. Don't have it from excess added sugar when it comes to things like whatever you're drinking that day, something that's really sugary, sweetened beverage. Don't get something that has added sugar for no benefit other than taste. So check the labels and just see, like, why is the sugar in here? And then if it doesn't make any sense, try and find an alternative. Notice I'm saying don't avoid like the plague. I'm just saying find a better solution, something that you can substitute, because substitution beats elimination every day of the week. And then when it comes to your waist circumference, you can do a number of things. And I've done entire episodes on how to reduce your visceral fat or your belly fat. So if you go look back, I'll give you a much better explanation there. And I'll go ahead and link it down below because I could definitely find it for you. But in a nutshell, your waist circumference, number one, it's going to come down to, are you in a calorie deficit enough to drive your body to pull from your fat stores to make up for that negative energy balance? So that's number one. Number two is, if you got booze or cigarettes in the equation, if we can get those out, that would be ideal because those drive visceral fat way, way up. And we do not want that to happen. Stress is another big one. You want to do your best to manage your stress as best as possible because that could affect your sleep. And sleep is also one of those things that can affect how you hold your fat storage, because when you sleep like crap, your hormones react in a way that it is not favorable to holding body fat where you want it to be held. Basically, crappier sleep increases your chance of holding more body fat because of the hormonal response. So you want to make sure that you have all these key factors working in your favor to put you in a position to get the results that you want to get and keep us in a place where you're really, really healthy. All right. Now, that's that for blood work. Let's go on to cardio because this is everybody's favorite. This is the one thing every single client never has an issue doing every single week. I always see the cardio on our weekly check-ins. Oh, I nailed that, nailed that. So if we're going to do cardio, let's aim for some goals. All right. One of the best ways to gauge your cardio or your cardiac health is by doing like a 1 mile run time. It's really simple. It's really easy. Now you can do a VO2 max test, and they've got apps for this. They've got lab tests for this. If you go to a fancy schmancy gym, they might even have one, but like VO2 max would be like the gold standard if you have access to that. But if you're like us normal folks, okay, and you just need something quick and easy to have some sort of a standard to hold you to, so you know, hey, I'm in a good place, a mile run time is a great place to be. So when it comes to what you would consider good, and in that place where you're doing what you need to do to put yourself in a good position, okay, I'll just read through it. So when it comes to the men, I'll go from the 30s. We don't care about the 20-year-olds. They can get away with anything. But 30 to 39, anything from 7 to 8.5 minutes, okay, would be ideal. 40 to 40, if you're in your 40s, 7.5 to 9 minutes. If you're in your 50s, 8.5 to 10 minutes. And if you're over 60, 9 to 11 minutes or less to complete a mile would put you in a really good spot as a male. And then for the women, if you're in your 30s, 8 to 9.5 minutes. 40s would be 8.5 to 10 minutes, 50s would be 9.5 to 11 minutes, and 60 plus would be 10 to 12 minutes or less. And if you are the type of person that does not do good with runs, because I had to go ahead and check like what would be a better time, or what would be about equivalent for somebody who isn't able to run, and the bike is usually the simplest one. Okay, you can look up other ones. Honestly, I recommend checking something like ChatGPT. They were really good at giving equivalents. And if you want all the citations for all these numbers, so you know it's not BS, those will also be down below. But yeah, I recommend just going to ChatGPT and picking whatever cardio equipment you are physically capable of doing and saying what would be, like, the prompt that I used was, what would be a good standard to reduce all-cause mortality risk as best as I possibly can? And then it'll kind of give you a range. So when it came to the bike, it said, hey, for the bike, a mile isn't that great because that's basically like a sprint. But if you want to put it to 10 miles, that would make more sense. And for a 10-mile bike ride, okay, for the men, like basic health would be under 35 minutes. Good/longevity, which is like a step above basic health, would be 30 minutes. And then if you want to be excellent and doing everything you can to resist or be resilient with aging, then that would be 25 minutes. And then for the ladies, that would be under 40 minutes for the basic health. Good longevity would be 34 minutes or less. And then excellent/resilient aging would be 28 minutes or less. And then next up is strength. So when it comes to strength, or actually back it up, cardio, I know I want to leave you guys with actionable tips. How do you get better at this? And I got to say, when it comes to cardio, just doing the damn thing does the job. Like if you want to get better at a mile run, do a mile run. Okay. If you want to get better at doing a 10-mile bike, do a 10-mile bike. Just don't do it every single day and gun it pedal to the metal, because the key thing with this and with the strength standards I'm going to be giving you, the key thing is not to overdo it, because if you go way too far on the work end and you can't catch up on the recovery end, your body is not going to adapt the way you want to, and it's not going to get you to the place that you want to be. There's the right amount here. Okay. You don't never want to do the most or the least. You always want to do the right amount. So doing a mile run or a 10-mile bike ride, maybe once, twice, maybe 3 times a week would be totally fine. But that is probably as much as I would do. And if you want to play around with other ends of the range, like if you want to do some sprint work one day, great. Just know the high intensity stuff you want to do even less frequently, because it's a greater demand on the body. And if you want to do longer distance, same deal. Like if it's a ton of mileage, again, you want to be picky with when you do that. So it could help to have a professional in your corner or find a workout split that works best for you. Or again, I'm not kidding when I say ChatGPT is getting really, really good. If you say, hey, I want to hit all these standards, make me a workout program, it can probably make you a really good one. I should test that out after this. Next is strength standards. This is my bread and butter because I am a certified strength and conditioning coach. I've been doing the personal training for almost 10 years now. So I can tell you that these strength standards I came up with for push-ups, reverse lunge, and pull-ups, because there are strength standards when it comes to deadlift, squat, bench press, all these things, but I want it to be accessible for everybody. And I also want to make sure that it's mimicking things that we want to achieve. So instead of a squat or a deadlift, I chose a lunge because number one, it challenges all the same muscles. Number two, it mimics getting up off the ground, which is a huge, huge thing later in life that we want to preserve and we want to make sure that our bodies can be capable of. And then when it comes to push-ups, I like it better than bench press because push-ups are more pound for pound strength. So it's more how well can you move your own body instead of, oh, how much can I load up on a bar? I might be super out of shape and super unhealthy, but I can bench press a lot of weight. Okay. So for that reason, I picked push-ups, and then same with the pull-ups or the rows. There's 2 different versions depending on what you can handle. Same thing. It's like, I don't care if you could lat pull down the entire stack. If you are not physically, metabolically healthy and you're carrying a lot of excess body fat, then it's really like, okay, you're strong, but we're not necessarily healthy. All right. So that's why I focused on these 3 things. So number 1 is push-ups. Okay. We're going to go with that same standard as far as like there's basic health, longevity, and then resilient aging. So for basic health, push-ups, men want to get around 10 to 14 push-ups for basic health. Then for longevity, getting to that next level, 20 to 25. And then for resilient aging, getting to that place where you are freaking Superman, over 30 reps. Now for the ladies, basic health would be 5 to 8 repetitions. These are normal, like full straight leg push-ups. Longevity would be 10 to 15. And then resilient aging would be 20 plus repetitions. Now, there's also a level for kneeling push-ups. So if for some reason you have some issues with your ankle flexibility or a foot is just not able to get into that position, then you could do kneeling as well. They just change a little bit. So basic health would be 10 to 14 reps, longevity would be 15 to 20 reps, and then resilient aging would be 25 or more repetitions. Now, I would do that first and then do the lunges second. That way you get a little rest in between the upper body stuff. And for the reverse lunge, went with a 5 rep max because 1 rep is fine. It's a learned skill. It's higher risk than doing 5 or even 10 repetitions, but 10 reps, you run the risk of your grip fatiguing before your legs do. So 5 is that nice little sweet spot in the middle. So when it comes to reverse lunge, for basic health for both men and women, body weight only is really, really good. And then for the men, when it comes to that longevity, we want about 25 to 40% of your body weight in pounds or in kilograms, either way. Percentages pretty much equal out everything. So 25 to 40% of your body weight for longevity. Resilient aging would be 50 to 70% of your body weight. Now, for the ladies, good, like I said, body weight only is good for basic health. And then for longevity, 15 to 30% of your body weight. And then for resilient aging, 40 to 50% of your body weight. All right. Now, that being said, when it comes to like reverse lunges, it's one of those things where we want to make sure that we are doing things in the best way that we can, making sure that grip is not a limiting factor. We want to make sure that we're able to do all these things in a pain-free way. So if you need to pick something else, again, plug it into ChatGPT and say, what's the equivalent of this for, say, a goblet squat or for a leg press? And it'll give you some good answers. But yeah, that should be good on that. Just when I give you these percentages, if anybody's not super savvy with percentages, for example, let's say you're a woman and you want to see if you could get to that resilient aging where it's 40 to 50% of your body weight, just type in whatever your body weight is and then multiply it by 0.4 for 40% or 0.5 for 50%. And if you're using two dumbbells, split that in half. So if you're like a 200-pound woman and you want to get to 50%, that would be 100 pounds. So hold a 50-pound dumbbell in each hand. Super simple, nothing crazy. Now, next is pull-ups or rows. So I know pull-ups are tough, really tough for pretty much everybody, and especially the ladies because the upper body seems to lag behind the legs more so than with the guys. But when it comes to basic health for men, 3 to 5 pull-ups would be awesome. For longevity, 8 to 12, and then for resilient aging, that would be over 15. And then for the ladies, basic health would be like 1 to 3 repetitions. Longevity would be 4 to 6, and then resilient aging would be 8 or more. And then for the ladies, there's also an option for inverted rows. And for this, that would be like if you have issues with going overhead, for example. Some people just physically can't get their arms straight up to the point where they are able to do a pull-up without pain. And that's totally fine. Just do inverted rows. And that's where you're either holding a barbell or a TRX and you're in that like tabletop position where you're basically from your knees to your shoulders is straight and it's parallel with the floor. So your knees are bent at 90 degrees, your feet are flat on the floor, and your torso to your knees are laying totally flat. And you're just pulling up to the point where your hands are at around your chest, and then you're going down until your arms are completely straight. So for that, we want to make sure for basic health is about, and this is just for the ladies, for basic health, that is 6 to 8 repetitions. For longevity, it is 10 to 12. And then for resilient aging, it is 15 or more. So those are the standards that we like to aim for to make sure that we're checking all the boxes we got to check. All right. Because life is too short to do it in a painful and weak and frail way. And I want to make sure that you guys are in a good spot later in life to the point where you don't have to worry about not being strong enough. You don't have to worry about not being mobile enough. You just are one of those rare few that are kicking ass and taking names regardless of whatever your age is. Okay. So that being said, let's get your butt in the gym. Let's start working out. Let's start working on those nutritional habits. Let's get a little bit of cardio in there if you haven't done it already, and let's get closer to these standards. All right. So that's it for today. But before you go, I know everybody listening usually has something with their fitness or their nutrition that they're trying to work on. So if that's the case, I got 3 things for you. Number 1 is a toned in 20 workouts, 20 at-home workouts that can help you get to those strength standards that we just talked about. Okay. You can do them from home. They're only 20 minutes and they can help you out a ton. It doesn't matter if you have dumbbells, bands, or no equipment at all. There are options for all 3. And then there's also, when it comes to the nutrition side of things, free nutrition assessment. You and me hop on the phone. We figure out exactly what you need to do going forward to improve your nutrition. And I'll give you as many resources as you need. And then number 3, last but not least, is coaching. Okay. It's the creme de la creme, the top of the top. Best way that I could possibly help you. I basically take all the stuff I just talked about and put it into a plan for you so that you just do this. So, if that sounds good to you and you know that you need that professional level of accountability to get the job done, go ahead, click that link below. Let's set up a call and see if it's right for you. All right. So, again, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time. But until then, go kick some ass. Bye bye.